I gotta say that new throwing mechanic is a lot of fun. Perhaps too much fun. Like a regular Barracuda, but only more acidic. Hello everyone, today we're going to be looking at the Darkness II. If you ever played the original and said, this needs to have faster action, cell shading, and a lower difficulty, then this is the game for you. So in true sequel fashion, this game takes place 2 years later with the return of Jackie Estacado. Hold up, did he shrink in the washing machine? This guy is definitely shorter. Or, maybe that's just a really big ass door. Another thing I need to start off with is make sure you turn down the volume when starting this game. You might go deaf from the opening company logos video. You might also notice Starbreeze Studios, aka the first game's developer, had nothing to do with this game. This game was made by Digital Extremes, which explains why it feels completely different. So let's ask, what's good about the Darkness II? This time around, the graphics, controls, and overall style is awesome. I like how they gave the Darkness a purple theme, which looks sharp. I really love the cel-shaded graphics, it really gives everything a slick, stylized look. Also, the addition of quad wielding was really cool. The firefights are a lot of fun, and the game does an awesome job making you feel powerful. They even included a health bar in true video game fashion. Right out of the gate, Slippy gets an upgrade. He's more of a grabber, if you will. I love the mechanic, and it's fun to steal an enemy's shield and cut him in half with it. However, the door grabbing mechanic gets used way too much progressing from area to area. The progression grapple looks really weird when you're too close to a door, by the way. The impact doesn't correlate with the grabber's head.
That is weird.
The devs also fleshed out character progression with unlockable abilities. I freaking love dark armor. It looks cool, and not only that, it turns Jackie into a honey badger in the dark. This power can be found in one of 4 simple skill trees, which you unlock with points from combat. There is also a second avenue to earning points by collecting relics. They even included background information for each relic, which makes the Darkness II feel like it's part of a grander scope. Also, the sound design is damn near perfect. The only thing I thought was funny was Mike Patton pausing or switching tones rapidly. Next up, we gotta talk about what's bad. So the combat is really good except for one problem. You only get 3 execution moves out of the gate: Head Whip, Anaconda, and Wishbone. If you ignore the execution skill tree, your gameplay gets super repetitive. The first time, awesome. 10th round, okay, maybe mix it up. The 50th time, yeah, it might be time to invest in that part of the tree. The only other thing that really bothers me about the Darkness II is that it's too short. I seriously wanted more content as this game is fun. They even cut corners when making this, as the opening scene uses the same female character model in a minute with 3 different angles. The game also really doesn't have a lot of boss battles. This isn't a really big deal, but it's an example of how the devs took shortcuts to get this out. It feeds into the idea that 2K didn't have faith in this series, which is what led to a lack of a third Darkness game or even a DLC to wrap things up, which is beyond frustrating. It's disappointing as 2K is usually really good.
We were on the verge of greatness. We were this close.
Right, next is weapons. Most weapons in the Darkness II are a lot of fun. The handguns are satisfying to use, and we actually reload them now. Like a normal person would. We can also mag dump a deagle, rest in peace Jackie's wrists. They also include a new revolver. Dying while reloading is a thing. I really enjoyed the idea of dual-wielding MP7s. I'm melting! The shotguns will actually do damage now beyond 6 meters, but I wouldn't say they're perfect. I'm pretty sure I shot that dude in the face. I should note my favorite firearm is the AK. It's accurate and has a good rate of fire. They also included a new rifle called the Striker, which is basically a semi-auto sniper rifle. High damage, good accuracy, Lastly, the M4 is seen maybe twice in the game. It's very rare and stuck on burst fire.
Look how they massacred my boy.
It should be noted the devs also added some cool slow motion moments when you kill the last enemy. Also, the ammo economy is weird, just like Resistance 2. You can either gather small pickups for the same type of weapon, or you can swap out your guns and receive way more ammo. You're basically being encouraged to switch up your guns as you go. Another thing I need to mention is that some firearms will automatically rack their bolts when equipping them. I'm not sure if it's all the guns, but the 1911 and the Striker rifle did it a few times. We also need to talk about the Darkness's powers. Similar to the first game, they included an opening showcase, but this time it's way more over the top. Look at all that strawberry jam. The Demon Arm melee attack is so much better now. It still blows my mind we couldn't smack people around like this in the first game. A new ability I appreciate is gun channeling. If you time it right, you can quickly wipe out an entire room of enemies. One change I disliked is that the black hole attack is now contingent on being dropped by an enemy. I actually preferred the previous black hole system where the ability would completely drain the darkness and in turn made us vulnerable. One weird thing to note is when carrying a black hole and stepping into any light, the black hole will immediately deploy. Whoops. One positive is the black hole dance moves are far more rare in the Darkness II as people get quickly sucked up. It's like the dice in the black holes. Another change in the Darkness II is we only get one Darkling, and his name is Nobby.
This is funny, don't ya?
Yes.
As a character, he's a massive step up from the last round of Darklings. The devs even included sections where you play as Nobby. These serve as a change of pace and are a good time. It's basically a Napoleon simulator. Okay, maybe that joke fell a bit short. Next up we have enemies, and these ones just feel like they're meat for the grinder. Case in point, we can now rapidly devour hearts like Pac-Man.
Waka waka.
We can now impale enemies with sharp objects, and it's really satisfying.
You okay?
Nah man, I'm pretty sure he's not okay. I did notice some enemy positioning is occasionally scripted. My best example is a guy who's supposed to shoot us through chain link fence, but when we rush him on the main path, he still doesn't move. I also love how the melee enemies still go full suicidal. Some good things never change. Outside of the typical grunts, I should mention there's a couple unique specialists. I already mentioned the shielded foes earlier, which don't have the best grip. Sir, I believe this is yours. On the flip side, there's these chaps who like to use whips to steal our firearms. Stop stealing my guns. I must say, it's awfully fun to have your shotgun stolen and then whipping out dual MP7s and mowing that fool down. They also include teleporting dudes later in the game, which are extremely annoying, and I'm not even referring to the guys who glitch behind cover. Lastly, there's a type of enemy which will throw light grenades, which I found pretty enlightening. Alright, I just have to talk about the first in-game boss, Swifty. His face just screams, oh man, I'm screwed.
Run, bitch! Run!
The logic to his boss fight is hilarious. Alright, here's the plan. I'm going to operate that wrecking ball crane, and you guys jump into the pit and attack him. A stunningly brilliant plan, I know.
I am so smart. I am so smart.
Also, I'm pretty sure that wrecking ball is made out of styrofoam. It's like being hit by a wiffle bat.
I'm kidding you, but unfortunately I could only afford a wiffle bat, so it's gonna take a while.
Let's talk about the plot without spoilers. First off, Jackie is now the Dawn of the crime family. I left this out of the first game's video as the entire scene is just terrible. One character declares that Jackie is competent and they immediately promote him to Dawn. You know, this 21-year-old with a broken jaw. How is he gonna give orders? Oh wait, his jaw actually moves in this game. Anyway, we cut to 2 years later and he's still in charge at the start of a turf war, which causes the Darkness to re-emerge. Overall, I really like the plot of the Darkness 2. I felt invested with the overall narrative and it's got an interesting hook. The story feels like it takes risks and it made me want to see what comes next. Right, let's get into spoilers. Please skip to the timestamp above if you wish to avoid them. The game opens with Jackie being ambushed in a restaurant by a rival gang. After being wounded, Jackie unleashes the Darkness and tears his assailants apart. What happens if you don't activate the Darkness? You can have cake or death.
Well, we're out of cake!
Jackie then pursues his attackers into a subway where he is stunned by a vision of his deceased girlfriend, Jenny. Jackie is then run over by a train. Talk about tunnel vision. We then awaken a psychiatric ward where the staff and patients are played by Jackie's crew. This kicks off a narrative that his mob life is a fantasy. I freaking love how the game plays with our perspective in the asylum. It really keeps you guessing right up until the end. Jackie then reawakens in New York and begins to plan a counterattack. I suppose there's worse things to wake up to. We then get to work trying to hunt down the leader of the group who tried to kill us, also known as Swifty. In the middle of our pursuit, we come across another vision of Jenny. Oh yeah, great, nothing like being lured to make out with your dead girlfriend. And she's gone. Once Swifty is subdued, he explains that a shady group from the Brimstone brothel hired him. Before we can learn more, the Darkness tears him apart to silence him. I'm glad the theme of losing control is more prevalent in this game, as it keeps us guessing what will happen next to Jackie. Right, we then cut back to Jackie's penthouse where we meet Johnny Powell. I really wish Johnny was in the first game, as it really would have helped to make this feel like a true sequel. Aesthetically, this guy looks creepy, and kinda reminds me of the Rosetta Stone sketch from SNL where the dude wants to learn Thai for a thing.
I'm learning Thai so I can go to Thailand for a thing.
We then travel to the Brimstone Club where Jackie encounters a cult called the Brotherhood. For those of you who may not know, these guys are a secret society who aim to capture the Darkness and use it to rule the world. You know, typical supervillain shenanigans. A bit later on we come across something that looks, smells, and even feels like a trap. What's the worst that could happen?
It's a trap!
Waking up later, we see that Jackie has been crucified. We then have an introduction to our main antagonist named Victor. The first thing you might notice is that he's slowly draining the Darkness power from Jackie using an ancient device called the Siphon. To speed things up, Victor graciously offers to relieve Jackie of the Darkness, and in exchange the Brotherhood won't murder his friends and family. After politely declining, Jackie loses consciousness and awakens in hell. This leads to a discovery that Jenny's soul has been imprisoned by the Darkness to manipulate Jackie.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for him.
Jackie then reawakens on the cross and proclaims that he can save Jenny. With this new inspiration, he breaks free. I'm pretty sure that guy was dead when the spike went through his frontal lobe. Hammering it a bit deeper does feel a bit overkill. We then try to escape the burning building. While getting the hell out, the Darkness offers Jenny's soul for the Siphon. I know it's supposed to be like twisted and kind of messed up, but when Mike Patton reads this line, it just sounds so funny.
The Siphon! For Jenny!
Jackie then has to retake his home and rushes to his room to save his Aunt Sarah.
Jackie!
Unfortunately, Jackie's immediately wounded by a Brotherhood enforcer who then murders his Aunt Sarah. As he bleeds out, he's finished off with one last shot to the face. This results in us winning a trip back to the asylum where we now learn that Jenny's a nurse. I found it fascinating the game parallels all the characters as staff, which really solidifies how Jackie could actually be insane. Later, we awaken just in time for Aunt Sarah's funeral, where the Brotherhood stages another ambush. Jackie then hunts down the Enforcer, who tells us of their hideout. After a quick reenactment of the Temple of Doom, we head to an abandoned theme park. I gotta mention this, every time I see the truck explosion scene where that one grunt gets flung 80 feet into the window, it makes me laugh every goddamn time. After a bit of exploring, we find an Iron Maiden, which Jackie's pushed into, which results in him returning to the mental asylum where we meet the janitor. To Jackie's point of view, the janitor is actually our Darkling. He then explains the asylum isn't real, and it's being generated by the darkness to control Jackie, but at the same time keep him away from Jenny. We then return back to New York, where we play as the Darkling to help Jackie escape. Once we reach Jackie and free him, we learn he no longer has possession of the darkness. Wait, was the Iron Maiden not even locked? Our Darkling doesn't even break any locks, so I get the impression Jackie could have just stepped out at any moment and just dropped 4.5 meters.
I'm leaving.
Okay then, that was always allowed.
After that, we reclaim a portion of the darkness from Victor's sidekick named Peevish. This guy was a pretty weak boss fight, as he's kind of repetitive. We then pursue Victor through a mansion that was once owned by Jackie's father. After entering the main hall, we learn from Victor that Jackie's father had promised the darkness to the Brotherhood in order to save his son. The Brotherhood then spent 20 years searching for the siphon, which explains their absence. I don't know about you, but I really wanted to find out what happened to Jackie's father. It just feels like a massive tease to include him in the second game, but to not flesh out his story. Stop rustling my goddamn jimmies. We then catch up with Victor and gently break his face with the siphon.
Oh, he ain't pretty no more.
It's not like he was pretty before. Full disclosure, I personally didn't really care for having Victor as a final boss. Not only is he similar to Peevish, but with 2 out of 4 bosses being nearly identical, it kinda wrecks the replayability of this game. Jackie then regains the darkness and impales himself with a siphon to rescue Jenny's soul. This absolutely backfires as Jackie once again wakes up in the mental ward, where the staff offer to take him to Jenny to try and calm him down. The janitor then sacrifices himself to help Jackie escape. The janitor, of course, to our point of view, being the Darkling, giving a somber goodbye. We then make our way to the edge of the roof, where Jackie is approached by Jenny and Victor. Both attempt to convince him that his life as a mob boss is a delusion and that he should not end his life. We, the player, are then given a choice to either stay in the ward with Jenny or risk killing ourselves in an attempt to reach hell. For what it's worth, this game did a good job keeping people guessing on what was real or not. It's pretty messed up. The darkness tries to manipulate Jackie into thinking he's insane to crush his spirit. This is illustrated perfectly by one of the final in-game decisions. If the player chooses to stay, Jenny and Jackie will return to the first floor and slow dance. Not only is this ending creepy, but it completely undermines our Darkling's sacrifice to save us. Luckily, in New Game Plus, we can go back and select the better choice, where Jackie jumps off the roof and descends into hell. Upon arrival, we of course find hell guns and destroy the hell versions of regular enemies. I feel like the devs really cut corners on the last part of the game. I bet you they just said to themselves, we'll just copy and paste everything with a weird meat texture, no one will care. Wrong. Jackie then releases Jenny, and the couple finally embrace each other. What a great ending. Sure would be a shame if they included a post-credit scene that ruins it. Jenny is then revealed to be the new host of an entity called the Angelus, which is the opposite of the Darkness. The Angelus then escapes, leaving Jackie and the Darkness trapped in hell. Man, what a great setup for a sequel that's never gonna happen. So, in summary, The Darkness 2 has fun gameplay, cool abilities, and an interesting story. On that same note, the series doesn't have a future, so it's hard to get invested. I just can't get past the feeling the game needed more content. And before you say it, yes, I know there's co-op, but no one's playing it. With all that in mind, I'm gonna have to give The Darkness 2 a B+. Thank you all for watching. I really appreciate you watching until the end of the video. And lastly, but most importantly, I hope you all have a great day.